Guys, it's not looking good. The odds of a US recession just hit 60%. A recession is coming. And when it hits, 9 luxury brands are standing at the edge of a cliff with absolutely nothing to catch them. We're not talking about brands that'll struggle a bit. We're talking about companies that could lose billions, fire thousands, or straight up disappear. Because here's what nobody wants to admit. The luxury industry is already on life support. Growth has flatlined to between 1% and 3% annually. 50 million customers walked away last year. And if a recession hits, these 9 brands we're about to do this countdown on would be absolutely doomed. And trust us, by the time we get to number 1, you'll understand why. Let's start with number 9. Number 9. Mulberry and mid-tier British heritage houses. Remember when Mulberry was the bag every fashion blogger had to own? The Alexa bag in 2011 was everywhere. Kate Moss carried one. Alexa Chung, the bag's namesake, made it iconic. The Bayswater tote became the sophisticated woman's everyday carry. Mulberry felt special. British craftsmanship at a price point that was expensive but not insane. Then everything changed. Mulberry decided it wanted to be Hermes, and prices went up. Way up. The brand repositioned as true luxury instead of accessible British heritage. And customers looked at a Mulberry bag that now cost as much as entry-level Chanel and asked themselves a very reasonable question. Why? The numbers tell a crazy story. Mulberry reported falling sales and profit pressure throughout 2024 and 2025. The company blamed slowing luxury spending and lost VAT-free tourist sales. Because here's the thing about British heritage brands. They live or die on tourism. International shoppers used to flock to London, hit the Mulberry flagship, and stock up on bags with VAT refunds, making the prices more palatable. Brexit killed VAT-free shopping, the pandemic crushed tourism, and even now that travel has recovered, tourists are choosing French and Italian luxury over British mid-tier. The resale market is even worse. You'll be lucky to get 40% of your purchase price back within a year. And here's why a recession would be catastrophic for Mulberry. The brand sits in the worst possible position. Too expensive for cash-strapped aspirational buyers who'll just buy Coach or Michael Kors. Not prestigious enough for wealthy collectors who'll stick with Hermes and Chanel. It's the middle market squeeze, and when recession hits, the middle always gets crushed first. Mulberry has a smaller balance sheet than the mega brands, less financial cushion to ride out prolonged revenue drops. If tourist traffic falls and domestic retail collapses, the brand faces a death spiral. Full-price sales disappear, forcing discounts and clearance that destroy brand equity, which makes wholesale partners reduce orders, leading to store closures or desperate searches for emergency capital. The verdict? Mulberry won't die overnight. But a recession could push this once-beloved British brand into fire sale territory or acquisition by a larger group at pennies on the dollar. This brings us to the next brand on this list. Number 8. Niche. It bag. Designers with weak resale. You know the pattern. A bag goes viral and some Instagram-famous designer nobody heard of 6 months ago suddenly has a waiting list. Celebrities are carrying it. Fashion editors are breathless. The bag becomes the thing everyone needs to have for about 18 months. Then the algorithm changes. Influencers move on. The next viral bag drops and suddenly that bag you paid $2,500 for is sitting in your closet feeling very, very stupid. Welcome to the it bag trap. These brands have zero heritage buffer, no archive to fall back on, no collector market that protects value. They're pure hype, and hype is the most fragile thing in luxury. Fashion press and market analysts are sounding alarms about this. Consumer behavior has shifted away from viral, hype-led purchases toward what they're calling slow luxury and timeless pieces. The IT bag moment is getting shorter. The resale arbitrage that used to exist has collapsed. Here's what happens to these brands in a recession. Influencer marketing budgets get slashed first. Younger buyers, the core customer base for viral bags, tighten their wallets immediately. The hype evaporates like morning dew. Resale values collapse so hard and so fast that new buyers disappear entirely because they realize they're buying something worthless. Then the brand faces inventory glut. All those bags they made betting on sustained demand, they're stuck with them. Forced discounting or shutdown becomes inevitable. And here's the part that should terrify anyone holding one of these bags. Social media platforms like TikTok are pushing social commerce hard. Over $100 billion in revenue projected from social media product purchases in 2025, but that also means the trend cycle is faster than ever. What's hot this month is forgotten next month. The brands that'll die first in a recession are the ones that depend entirely on being hot. Because when money gets tight, people don't buy temporary status symbols. They buy things that last. The it bag you begged for in 2021 could be the bag literally nobody wants in 2026. And if you're a brand built on one viral silhouette with no heritage and no staying power, you're done. And if fragile hype brands are risky, wait until you see what's happening to brands with too many stores in the wrong places. Number 7. Brands overexposed to us retail footprint. Luxury retail in America is facing a reckoning. For years, brands opened flagships and boutiques in every major city and high-end mall. Real estate was the flex. Physical presence meant prestige. More stores equaled more sales. Except now it doesn't. The retail environment has fundamentally shifted. Department stores and mall anchors are closing or drastically pruning their footprints. Store lease costs and fixed retail expenses have become massive liabilities during consumer slowdowns. You can't just decide to pay half your rent because foot traffic dropped, boutique leases lock you in, staffing commitments are rigid, build-outs and renovations are sunk costs. Every store becomes a potential money pit the moment sales decline. Do you know the frustrating part for these brands? Luxury purchases happen in-store far more than other categories. People want to try on a $3,000 bag before buying. They want the experience, the service, the feeling that they're being treated like someone special. This experience is part of the marketing tactics of a physical store. It's brand building. Losing that physical presence doesn't just hurt sales. It makes your brand disappear from the cultural conversation. So brands with heavy US retail footprints are stuck. Fewer visitors means fewer purchases, but they still have to pay for those beautiful flagship stores. Then there's wholesale exposure. Brands that rely heavily on department stores like Neiman Marcus, Saks, and Nordstrom are tied to their retail partners' health, and those partners are struggling. If department stores cut orders or go under, brands face abrupt revenue holes and instant loss of visibility. Recent reporting shows major retail shakeouts and store closures across 2024 and 2025. The brands most exposed to this trend, the ones with dozens of US stores and heavy wholesale partnerships, are staring at catastrophic losses if recession hits. The verdict? Physical retail used to be a strength. In a recession, it becomes an anchor dragging brands underwater. And as these brands overexposed to retail footprint drowns, these next brands have probably hit rock bottom. Number 6. Brands with heavy overexposure and over-collabs. Let's talk about collaboration fatigue. There was a time when a luxury brand collaborating with a streetwear label or contemporary artist felt special. Remember Supreme and Louis Vuitton in 2017? Game-changing. Takashi Murakami and LV in the early 2000s. Iconic. But then brands got greedy. Louis Vuitton alone has done Murakami twice, Yayoi Kusama twice, Supreme, Jeff Koons, Virgil Abloh's entire tenure, Pharrell Williams, Tyler the Creator, Fornasetti, Frank Gehry, Formula One. And that's just LV. When you have a major collaboration dropping every few months, none of them feel special. Or what do you think? Each collab is meant to generate hype, create scarcity, and drive cultural conversation. But when it's relentless, it becomes noise, background static. The bags become souvenirs, expensive pins you buy at the museum gift shop because you attended the exhibition. Industry analysts noticed something interesting about the Kusama collaboration in 2023. It generated $39.7 million in media impact value. People talked about the robotic Kusama statue in store windows, the giant inflatable sculptures, the Instagram installations. Nobody talked about the actual products. That's not luxury. That's merch. And here's where this becomes a recession vulnerability. Overexposure kills aspiration. When everyone is carrying the same logo bag you spent $2,000 on, the exclusivity vanishes. When every influencer has the collab piece, it stops being special. Certain lines from houses like Gucci historically fell into this trap. Logo-heavy pieces, constant collabs, so much product in circulation that even authentic pieces struggle because buyers assume everything is fake. The resale market is flooded. Authentication has become an entire industry because these brands are the most counterfeited on earth. You're not buying exclusivity. You're buying a logo that's been photocopied so many times it's become visual noise. In a recession, consumers get ruthlessly selective. They ask hard questions. Is this actually special? Will this hold value? Am I buying quality or just hype? And brands that have overexposed themselves through relentless collaborations and oversaturation, they have no good answers. The verdict? Ubiquity is the opposite of luxury. And in a recession, ubiquitous brands bleed first. But overexposure is nothing compared to brands built on a foundation that was never sustainable to begin with. Number 5. Digitally native luxury startups and DTC high-end labels. The direct-to-consumer dream is dead. Let us be more specific. The pure DTC dream is dead. The idea that you could launch a luxury brand, sell exclusively online through Instagram ads and influencer partnerships, skip traditional retail entirely, and build a sustainable business, that model just got drowned in the bathtub. Here's what happened. DTC luxury startups exploded in the 2010s. Warby Parker for glasses, Casper for mattresses, Allbirds for sneakers. These brands showed it could work. Cut out the middleman, sell directly to customers, use the savings to offer better prices, use social media to build hype. Then reality hit. Customer acquisition costs skyrocketed. Meta's average price per ad across Instagram and Facebook went up 9% year over year. Google and Amazon became the new middlemen. Every brand piling onto e-commerce was willing to sacrifice more and more margin to the ad platforms just to acquire customers. And eventually, everyone regressed to break even. Funding for consumer startups was down 47% in Q1 2025. Venture capital investments plummeted 97% from 2021 to 2023. The average annual revenue growth rate for DTC stores slowed to just 10% in 2024, the lowest in 5 years. These brands have structural weaknesses that make them recession death traps. High customer acquisition cost dependency makes them vulnerable when ad pricing rises. They have no second-hand or collector markets, which limits perceived long-term value. Thin margins and inventory risk mean unsold stock is costly and forces discounts that damage brand exclusivity. Now, where's what happens when recession hits? The ad market tightens. Consumers cut discretionary spending. CAC rises while conversion drops simultaneously. Brands start burning cash trying to sustain growth. They either sell inventory at clearance prices, destroying any pretense of luxury positioning, or investors pull back. Bankruptcies or fire sale acquisitions follow. Casper went public, then got sold to private equity just 2 years later. Allbirds announced store closures and shifted to distributors. Outdoor Voices abruptly shuttered its entire fleet. These were the DTC darlings, the success stories, and they all hit the same wall. The verdict? If your luxury label only lives on Instagram ads, you're not a luxury brand. You're a marketing campaign that'll die the moment the algorithm changes. And that should terrify anyone who bought expensive items from digitally native startups with no retail presence, no resale market, and no heritage. Because in a recession, those brands won't just struggle. They'll vanish just like portions of this next brand. Number 4. Portions of Chanel's market. Specific lines under pressure. Wait. Chanel? Yes, Chanel, not the entire house, but specific portions of their market are walking into a buzzsaw they don't see coming. Let's be clear. Chanel Classic. Flaps in iconic sizes, vintage pieces from the Karl Lagerfeld era, couture and high jewelry. Those will survive anything. The ultra-wealthy will keep buying. Collectors will keep collecting. That part of Chanel is bulletproof. But there's another part of Chanel's business that's in serious trouble. The entry-level luxury items, the bags and small leather goods that aspirational buyers used to save up for. Those products are experiencing something unprecedented. Buyer fatigue. Chanel has continued systematic price increases year after year. For some staple pieces, the hikes are steep. Several percent increases across 2024 and 2025, prompting buyer frustration and widespread complaints that items are overpriced relative to perceived quality improvements. Here's the problem. Repeated hikes cross a psychological threshold. Even people who can technically afford it start refusing to pay on principle. And when price rises faster than perceived craftsmanship or innovation, credibility declines. Certain starter luxury models have become so common they've lost exclusivity. When every finance bro's girlfriend has the same entry-level Chanel piece, it stops being aspirational. It becomes a checkbox. And checkboxes don't command premium pricing during recessions. And here's what buyers are noticing. Quality concerns. People who bought their first classic flap in 2012 and bought another one last year report, the new one feels cheaper. Caviar leather that's thinner, stitching that's less precise, hardware that feels lighter. You're paying more for measurably worse quality. Fashion forums and luxury Reddit communities are filled with longtime customers saying the same thing. I returned my recent Chanel purchase because it felt cheap compared to my old one. That's a death spiral for a luxury brand. When your own loyal customers start questioning if you're worth it, you're in trouble. The verdict? Chanel's iconic pieces will survive any recession, but the entry-level portions of their business, the pieces that aspirational buyers saved for, those lines could see catastrophic demand collapse if recession hits, and buyers finally ask themselves if a worse quality bag at twice the price is actually worth it. And if Chanel's pricing strategy is risky, the next brand on our list is watching its entire business model disintegrate in real time. Number 3. Michael Kors and accessible luxury mid-tier labels. Michael Kors is drowning. Let's look at the numbers because they're absolutely catastrophic. Michael Kors is part of Capri Holdings, which also owns Jimmy Choo. And Capri's financial results for 2025 tell a horror story. Full-year revenue dropped 14% to $4.4 billion. Net loss grew to $1.2 billion from $229 million the previous year. During Q4 alone, revenue decreased 15.4%. Michael Kors specifically, revenue fell to $2.75 billion, down from $3 billion last year. America's revenue, which made up 68% of sales, dropped 10%. Asia fell 27%. Operating profit plummeted 16%. Capri posted $1.47 billion in long-term debt. They sold Versace to Prada for $1.375 billion just to pay down that debt. Selling Versace was selling the family silver at a loss to avoid drowning. Capri bought Versace for $2.12 billion in 2018. They just sold it for $600 million less than they paid. So what went wrong with Michael Kors? Everything. The brand became too accessible too fast. Logo bags were everywhere. Your coworker had one, your mom had one, the barista had one, and when everyone has it, nobody wants it anymore. Then Michael Kors tried to claw back prestige by raising prices and limiting distribution. But consumers aren't stupid. Why am I paying $350 for a Michael Kors bag when I could get Coach for less? Or save a bit more and buy actual luxury, customers asked themselves. The accessible luxury space became a no man's land. Too expensive to be an impulse buy, not prestigious enough to be an investment piece. And Michael Kors sits right in the death zone. Analysts explicitly blame lack of innovation and overdependence on volume sales and discounting. The brand has engaged in heavy discounting and markdowns to maintain volume, which eroded price integrity and brand prestige. Retail analyst Neil Saunders put it perfectly. It is now very hard to understand what Michael Kors stands for, the price level it wants to play at, and how it is differentiating from other premium brands. It is basically a mediocre label with an expensive price point attached. Mediocre. With an expensive price point. That's Michael Kors in 2025, and here's why a recession would be terminal. Michael Kors sits in accessible luxury, or the aspirational luxury list. The target buyers are middle-class consumers and aspirational shoppers. Those are the first to cut discretionary spending in a recession. Demand for aspirational luxury bags could collapse rapidly, meaning Michael Kors may see sharper relative drops than high-end brands, and discounting to drive sales just accelerates the death spiral. It further erodes resale value, reduces long-term brand value, and eventually the brand loses its aspirational appeal entirely. Too cheap for luxury seekers, too expensive for budget buyers. Capri expects total revenue of $3.3 to $3.4 billion for 2026. CEO John Idle keeps saying they're optimistic about returning to growth in 2027. But here's what he's actually saying. We're not growing this year. We're not growing next year. Maybe we'll grow the year after that if everything goes perfectly. That's not confidence. That's desperation. The verdict? Michael Kors has been dying slowly for years. A recession doesn't threaten this brand. It finishes the job. But if Michael Kors is bleeding out slowly, the next brand is going through a crisis so severe it might not survive another year. Number 2. Versace and Capri Holdings. We need to talk about what just happened to Versace because it's not just one brand's crisis. It's a case study in how luxury brands die when everything goes wrong at once. Versace should be untouchable. Founded by Gianni Versace in 1978, it was the symbol of Italian luxurious excellence and glamour. The Medusa logo, that safety pin dress, red carpets, celebrities. Everything about Versace screams maximalist glamour and Mediterranean luxury. So how did it get to where it is at the moment? Let's start with Capri Holdings, Versace's parent company. The group posted a net loss of $1.2 billion for fiscal 2025. Quarter 4 alone saw revenue drop 15.4% to $1 billion. The company is carrying $1.47 billion in long-term debt. Versace revenue dropped 15% in one quarter and 21% in quarter 4 specifically. The Americas region fell 21%. EMEA decreased 13%, and Asia declined 11%. It's a global collapse. Here's what makes this fascinating and terrifying. Versace tried to upgrade its image. Under CEO Cedric Charbit, the brand shifted from bold, flashy maximalism toward more sophisticated, quiet, luxury aesthetics. That repositioning backfired spectacularly. It alienated existing customers who loved Versace for being bold and glamorous. According to Capri's CEO, that transformation was a mistake that really went off the core values or DNA that Michael Kors has. He meant Versace. The brand confused itself trying to be something it's not. Versace got stuck between two markets. Not cheap enough for mass-market accessible luxury buyers. Not exclusive enough to compete with ultra-luxury houses like Hermès and Chanel. That middle position is toxic during economic uncertainty. The failed merger between Capri and Tapestry, the owner of Coach and Kate Spade, removed a financial backstop. The deal was supposed to provide resources and synergies. When it collapsed, Versace became more exposed to demand drops. Here's the structural problem. Versace attempted to go upmarket during the worst possible time. The fashion world moved toward quiet luxury, just as Versace was known for loud, statement-making pieces. The brand tried to pivot, lost its identity, and now it doesn't know what it is. Financial pressure at Capri hasn't helped. Cost-cutting, strategic confusion, revolving door executives, and now the desperate sale to Prada. Prada bought Versace for $1.375 billion. Capri paid $2.12 billion for it in 2018. That's a $600 million loss in 7 years. Let that sink in. Capri owned one of the most recognizable fashion brands on earth for 7 years and sold it at a massive loss. That's not strategic repositioning, that's failure. Here's what happens to Versace if recession hits now. Prada just bought a damaged brand with confused identity, declining sales, and weakened positioning. If economic conditions worsen, Prada faces the nightmare scenario of trying to rehabilitate Versace while consumer spending collapses. Versace's aspirational and younger buyer segment is likely to pull back fastest, causing sharp declines in sales volume. And here's the resale reality. Versace pieces don't hold value unless they're vintage runway items or iconic bags from the golden era. That print shirt you bought this season? In 2 years, it'll look embarrassingly of the moment in the worst possible way. The verdict? Versace won't disappear overnight. Prada won't let it die. But the brand that was supposed to represent Italian luxury excellence has been gutted, sold at a loss, and is entering a potential recession in the weakest position it's faced in decades. And yet somehow, there's a brand in even worse shape. A brand whose crisis is so severe, so completely self-inflicted, that it makes Versace's problems look manageable. Number 1. Balenciaga, the reputation apocalypse. November 2022 is when Balenciaga committed brand suicide. Balenciaga released a holiday advertising campaign featuring children, young children maybe 2 or 3 years old, holding teddy bear handbags, except the teddy bears were wearing BDSM gear. Then people started looking closer at another ad campaign and noticed a Supreme Court case about child pornography laws. The backlash was catastrophic. Within days, hashtags like Burn Balenciaga and Cancel Balenciaga generated over 300 million views on TikTok. Influencers filmed themselves literally destroying Balenciaga products. Kim Kardashian, Balenciaga's most visible ambassador, had to reconsider her relationship with Balenciaga. Business of Fashion rescinded creative director Demna's Global Voices Award. Dua Lipa stopped wearing Balenciaga on tour. Several retailers pulled Balenciaga products from stores and online platforms entirely. Kering, Balenciaga's parent company, initiated damage control. They released multiple apologies, terminated relationships with the creative and production teams responsible, and conducted internal investigations. They even reorganized image approval processes and pledged funding for child protection initiatives. But here's what nobody believed: the explanation that this happened by accident. Some advertising analysts believe the campaigns were intentional shockvertising, designed to generate attention, even if negative. The theory goes that Balenciaga got millions in free media coverage, and eventually consumers would forget and come back. Except they haven't forgotten, and many haven't come back. Reports show that segments under Kering, which include Balenciaga, dropped approximately 19% following the scandal. According to fashion desirability indexes, Balenciaga dropped dramatically from top spots to far lower rankings between late 2022 and early 2023. The brand's social media following and influencer cachet suffered catastrophically. Celebrity ambassadors publicly distanced themselves. Former supporters lost followers just for endorsing the brand. On a brand equity level, the 3 foundational pillars for a luxury house, trust, exclusivity, and aspirational value, were torched. Now let's talk about why this is a recession death sentence. During economic slumps, buyers retreat from status-risky purchases. A brand like Balenciaga, already carrying massive reputational baggage, may see sharper demand drops than houses with stable heritage and zero controversy. Luxury goods rely on resale value to justify high prices. If trust and demand collapse, resale values fall, removing a safety net many buyers count on. And here's the psychological reality: the controversy continues to scare away mainstream aspirational buyers, while only a small, hardcore base remains. That reduces volume and long-term viability. Balenciaga doesn't need a full economic crash to be endangered. A mild to moderate market downturn, combined with lingering reputational damage, could meaningfully destroy the business. When consumers tighten spending, they don't buy from brands they don't trust. They don't invest in pieces that might become socially toxic to wear. The brand has reportedly tried to rebuild. New collections, renewed marketing, repositioning efforts helped in some segments, especially regions less sensitive to Western cultural scandals like parts of Asia-Pacific. Some leather goods lines have done reasonably well, suggesting a subset of affluent customers remain loyal, but according to industry analysts, Balenciaga has not fully regained its former universal prestige. The 2022 scandal still haunts the brand's reputation. Many consumers remain wary and suspicious. That association doesn't go away, not in 5 years, maybe not ever. Here's why Balenciaga is number 1 on this list. It's not just about sales numbers or market positioning, it's about fundamental brand equity destruction. Luxury, more than any other industry, depends on perception, image, moral acceptability, and social status. Balenciaga crossed a line from edgy to morally unacceptable. That makes recovery orders of magnitude harder than creative confusion or pricing mistakes. Unlike brands that can fix their problems through new designers, better products, or smarter marketing, Balenciaga has to rebuild trust from negative territory. And in a recession, when consumers become ruthlessly selective about where they spend premium dollars, trust is everything. Heritage is everything. Moral credibility is everything. Balenciaga has none of those things right now. The verdict? Balenciaga won't necessarily collapse completely. Kering won't let its investment die without a fight. But if a US recession hits, this brand faces potential long-term decline that could reduce it from a major luxury house to a niche label for people who either don't know about the scandal or don't care. And that's the brand's nightmare. Not death. Irrelevance. The luxury industry is facing its most significant test in over a decade. Growth has flatlined. 50 million customers walked away. And if America enters recession at 60% odds, these 9 brands don't just face challenges. They face existential threats. But here's what makes this moment so fascinating. This isn't just about recession. It's about a fundamental reset of what luxury means. For too long, brands operated under the assumption they could do whatever they wanted and customers would keep paying. But customers are waking up. The question is whether giants like Balenciaga, Michael Kors, and Versace will course correct before it's too late, or whether they'll keep making the same mistakes, closing stores, and wondering why people don't want to pay thousands of dollars for brands that no longer stand for anything. Drop a comment and tell me, which brand on this list surprised you most? Are you still buying from any of them? And most importantly, do you think a US recession is actually coming? Hit subscribe if you want more deep dives into the luxury industry's biggest disasters and the brands most likely to collapse next. Because trust me, this list could grow. So, see you in the next one.